You know that moment when you scroll through a dozen listings, see a sleek photo of a tool that promises to shave hours off a job, click Add to Cart, and then when it finally lands on your workbench it feels off? The motor sounds louder than advertised, the handle is wobblier than it looked on the screen, and you end up spending more time wrestling the equipment than actually getting work done. That's the kind of disappointment I've seen happen far too often with power tools, especially when the product page looks cleaner than a showroom floor. If you're about to invest in a Burnisher and want to sidestep that regret, stick around. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. The Clarke Ultra Speed 20 is marketed as a high-speed burnisher for those who need to bring a fast, consistent finish to wood, metal, or concrete surfaces. The first thing I asked myself was, does this machine actually fit into the rhythm of a real workshop? I dug into the typical workflow of a small shop wood finisher, a contractor who needs to polish concrete floors, and a hobbyist restoring vintage metal parts. Across those use cases, the same concerns come up. How quickly can you spin the pad up to speed? How stable the base feels when you press down? And whether the power draw will overwhelm a standard 120-volt outlet. If you're a professional who spends several hours a day sanding or polishing large surfaces, the Ultra Speed 20's promise of rapid RPMs can be a real time saver. The machine is built to handle the continuous load that a shop floor demands, so you won't be forced to shut it down after a few minutes because it overheats. That reliability translates directly into money saved, less downtime, fewer interruptions, and a tighter schedule for your clients. On the flip side, if you only need a burnisher for occasional weekend projects, you might find that the price point and the heft of the unit are more than you really need. A lighter, Cardinally model could do the job for a few hours a month without the extra bulk. One of the most common hidden trade-offs with high-speed burnishers is the balance between speed and control. The Ultra Speed 20 reaches its top speed in a second or two, which feels great when you're moving across a concrete slab and want to keep a steady rhythm. In my tests on a 12-foot wooden tabletop, that quick spin-up meant the polishing pad maintained a consistent friction pattern, leaving a uniform sheen without the orange peel you sometimes get with slower tools that struggle to keep up with the operator's hand motion. However, that same rapid acceleration can make the tool feel a bit twitchy if you're not used to handling a motor that wants to get up to speed instantly. For a beginner, you might need a short learning curve to keep the pad from digging into softer wood or leaving swirl marks on a metal surface. The ergonomics of the unit are worth a closer look because they impact how you actually use the machine over a full day. Clarke has given it a fairly substantial base that sits flat on the work surface, which reduces wobble and gives you a solid platform when you press down on a stubborn spot. That steadiness is a real advantage when you're polishing a concrete garage floor. You can lean your weight into the tool without it hopping around. The handle, while not padded, is positioned to let you maintain a neutral wrist angle, which helps reduce fatigue during longer sessions. If you're taller or shorter than average, you might need to adjust the height of your workbench or use a small step stool to keep your posture comfortable. But that's a small price to pay for the stability the base provides. Power consumption is another practical consideration. The Ultra Speed 20 pulls enough amps that you'll want to plug it directly into a dedicated outlet rather than a power strip. I ran it on a standard 15-amp circuit and didn't notice any drop in performance. But if your workshop is already loaded with other high-draw tools, you might hit a breaker if you run them simultaneously. For a single tool setup, say, you're only using the burnisher for a floor polishing job, that won't be a problem, but a small shop that runs a saw, a sander, and a compressor all at once should plan the wiring accordingly. Now let's talk about the practical strengths that become clear once you start using the machine day to day. First, the speed range is truly usable across different materials. On a medium-hard hardwood floor, the 20-inch pad spun fast enough to lift fine scratches without needing to backtrack with a slower pad. On a softer pine tabletop, dialing the speed down just a notch prevented the pad from gouging the surface, while still delivering a glossy finish that rivaled a hand-rubbed polish. Second, the motor's torque feels consistent. You won't get that sudden drop in power that leaves you wondering if the tool is about to die mid-run. That consistency is a real confidence booster, especially when you're working in